Erin Andrew. I am with Sierra Streams Institute. So we are an environmental nonprofit based here in Nevada City. Our bread and butter is actually water quality monitoring, and we've been around since the early 90s. But we've since expanded, and we have a restoration team, and we also do some forestry work, and we have an awesome education department that was working with kids to teach them how to collect forestry data. And so I am, along with my boss, Jeff Lauder, who could not be here tonight, unfortunately. We are the main forestry folks at Sierra Streams, and this project was conceived with him. So it's called the Sierra Foothill Forest and Climate Resilience Project, which is such a mouthful, and we can't change it right now. it's stuck. Okay, so for those of you that are new, I think it makes sense to give you some background on the project, right? So we are here at Woolman, and actually our office used to be here at Woolman, but we burned down in the Jones Fire in 2020, unfortunately. But Jeff, our boss, really saw the value in including a landscape scale project involving the community around us. So not only Woolman is involved, but we have you guys in the FireWise community. We've included Bureau of Land Management land, Nevada City School of the Arts, and then Shady Creek Outdoor School. So this includes a multi-parcel, multi-jurisdictional project footprint. And so there's two phases to this project. We're now in the implementation phase, but we had a planning phase. And so that planning phase resulted in forest management plans based on data collection. And so I've been to some of your properties personally with technicians to collect that data, which was then fed into the forest management plan. And so we've had a number of collaborators and partners that have kind of snowballed over the past few years. Okay, so how did we get to this point? So in the planning phase, we held a number of community share-outs at Woolman School. We actually did a fire modeling simulation with this entity called SimTable, where they started theoretical ignitions from different places in the FireWise community, and we could actually see how the fire would travel across the landscape, and that's available on our YouTube channel. We've inventoried approximately 50 properties. You are in Cohort 2, so that's in combination with the first grouping of landowners, and then we took your input because we want this to be a conversation in terms of how to proceed, what does implementation look like. So culminated in the 4 forest management plans, and then there's this resource toolkit, and actually we have a binder. So we have a digital copy of our toolkit available on our website, but then we also have a binder in the back that is the toolkit. And the toolkit was developed for you, the landowners, as a tool, right? So you can look to the toolkit for grant information, for contractors, what are Scottsboro best management practices, which we're still trying to figure out, among other things. So please feel free to go on our website and check out the stewardship toolkit, and we're also going to be refining that over time. And this is just a cute picture of our technician Annie. She's coring a tree to age the tree. And then this is our technician Gary just chatting with the landowner for this project. Let's see, this slide got scrambled. I'll go back to that. Oh no, it didn't. Sorry guys. So based on the data that we collected, what are the more valuable pieces of information? So bear with me, but this is a diameter distribution curve. So this informs us on the structure of the forest. So these different colors represent different species, and the trees are grouped into different diameter classes, so 2-inch increments. And then basal area is the cross-sectional area of a tree at 4.5 feet above the ground. So in other words, it gives us a sense for where most of the trees lie in terms of their density and species composition. So for example, the navy blue is ponderosa pine, right? So it kind of makes sense that you would see the ponderosa pine kind of in those larger diameter classes because they tend to be bigger trees. So anyway, this is a key nugget that went into the decision for the scope of work. And so looking at this, you can see, in the 8-inch class, we're proposing to remove trees and brush that are under 8 inches in diameter or less. So if we took all that out, that would make quite a bit of a dent in terms of the forest structure. Anyway, enough of that. So Cohort 1, we treated landowners on the Jonesboro FireWise community already, as well as Woolman's School here. So there are 23 properties that we treated, and we asked these landowners for feedback recently. And so they said, so they wanted to see photos of what to actually expect after the work was done, because it can be kind of stark and jarring. They wanted more time to walk the treatment areas with us. That's really important. There's one landowner in particular, we had kind of a misconnection, and it is really helpful for us to all be on the same page as far as, you know, what the flagging looks like and what's actually going to be removed. So that's critical. A positive accolade, this is a worthwhile project, glad you implemented it. Some were not aware that they could ask for changes, and you absolutely can. So maybe there are some select trees that you really want to keep on your property that are meaningful to you, or maybe you want some privacy screening from your neighbor. These are things that we can absolutely work with you on so that we can be on the same page with objectives. Someone said make a flow chart for the process. We've absolutely done that, and I sent that to you in an email just to make it really clear as far as what to expect all the way out to implementation. And then just a reminder also that the presence of machinery can be jarring as well, right? Like, I mean, if you have this big masticator on your land, it's just, you know, it's noisy, it can be kind of intense. So as far as the treatment proportions that we did for that cohort, most of it was hand thinning, like that one by a small margin, followed by mastication of 43 acres. We did have a prescribed burn here at Woolman in collaboration with First Rain Farm. That was a demonstration event where the public could come and see how a prescribed burn implemented. And it was pretty sweet. And already, if you walk outside, if it's still light out after this, you'll see that the ferns are coming up. And the hope is that we'll get even more ferns after. And also, there's more blackberry as well. But that's the point. We're going to have to just continue to manage this. We also seeded, so there was a fire called the Pleasant Fire that occurred on the Jonesboro community. That was 45 acres in 2022. So we have seeded with an erosion control seed mix, and then we're going to be planting some climate smart seedlings in the future. And so, and then we also held a biochar demonstration with the Biochar Coalition also here at Woolman. And so that was another way to demonstrate to the public, another way to deal with biomass. So you're burning it, yes, but then you are also quenching it to turn it into charcoal, which is a soil amendment. And I also want to emphasize with this project, like what our objectives are going into it. And we're absolutely open to feedback as well. But the intention of this project is not only to manage for fuels reduction and wildfire risk mitigation, but also to improve wildlife habitat. That kind of goes hand in hand, but promoting species diversity as well. So we really want, clumps of shrubs and a diversity of shrubs and trees left. And so we're not going to go in and do like an understory clear cut. You may have heard that term. We do want to leave vegetation on the land because that is habitat and that is good for diversity. And the climate smart aspect, you may have heard that buzzword, but in this respect, when it comes to seedlings, one consideration is actually planting seedlings that are sourced from lower elevation and further south because they're more drought resistant. So that's what we're proposing to do in the Pleasant Fire Scar. Okay, so here are some photos, as promised, from Cohort 1. So on the left, this property was chipped. On the right, this property was masticated. And apologies, you probably can't see the detail that well on the screen, but hopefully you get the gist. There's generally 25-foot spacing between the trees that are left. And so something that you could notice is if you have a drainage, for example, on your property, we promote leaving a buffer on either side of the drainage because that could provide some shading for habitat and for water quality purposes and filtering. So these are just things that we're thinking about. And also we we like to promote leaving clumps. So this is a manzanita clump that was left on the property. Okay, so on the left, this property was masticated up until this point, really, and then you can see what it looked like, before. A lot of small-stemmed Doug fir, and then this property was chipped. So this is mostly a manzanita thicket, and so there wasn't much to leave in terms of trees, but we did encourage them to leave some manzanita clumps, which they did do. And they opted for chipping in this case because it was a really rocky site. Okay, this is more chipping, just close up. And we did have a comment from a landowner who had said, oh yeah, this just looks kind of stark, right? Because, perhaps there's not much out there and then boom, you just have a clump of shrubs, but it's gonna grow back. Yeah, and then this property also had chipping. A couple more, so there was mastication on this one. And all the properties had pruning of the trees up to 10 feet to reduce ladder fuel potential. And so this is on the Pleasant Fire scar. So this is a pile that was created by the contractor. And if piles are put on your property, the contractor will be on the hook to come back to burn them. So that's what they're going to do this winter. They're going to come back and they're going to burn these piles. And then yay, we get to plant the seedlings. So there's pros and cons to different treatments, right? So there's mastication and hand thinning. That's the primary means by which we plan to reduce the fuels or reconfigure them and alter the structure of the forest. And so the thing is that mastication is less expensive. And so if there's a lot of folks that do want help, our money can go further if we do opt for mastication. But you can't masticate on over 40% slopes generally, rocky areas. Sometimes they just can't maneuver very easily on site, so it's very site specific. But we'll absolutely meet with you on your property and talk about what method is probably most likely to occur. And if you do have strong feelings one way or another, we can work with you to really try to accomplish the needs together. Oh yeah, there's another one. Okay, so this is the prescribed burn at Woolman that took place back in May, or spring burn. And this is a masticated property. There's actually not a lot of fine fuels left. There wasn't a lot of larger material on this property, so that's why there's just not much there. But this is an example of a privacy screen that was left. So this landowner didn't want to see that landowner behind them that much. So we just made sure to hang some green flagging out there so that the contractor knew, okay, we're going to leave this here. And you'll learn that the flagging, the different colors of the flagging mean different things. So are there any questions about what you've seen, comments from these photos? Is it kind of surprising what you saw, or is it like, no, typical for what you've seen?
Great question. Is there like a general acreage per parcel you're allowed to see, or what's like the average?
Yeah, that's a good question, because there's a lot of small parcel landowners that we've worked with. So it really just depends on the need and the budget, frankly. Yeah, so we've had a property where we treated up to 13 acres, and then another where we've treated as little as like half an acre. Yeah.
I knew the day you started the fire here, and then I saw the signs. You probably did publicity ahead of time, and I just didn't catch it, but it scared the bejesus out of me.
Oh, the prescribed burn here?
Yeah, being here for different fires.
Right.
Is my impression of prescribed burn was a pasture area. I was very naive with it. And I think they're setting the woods on fire with it. And then that night when I came back, it was still smoking, and I walked the area back there, and there were still small fires going. I walked it for a week, and there were less and less little fires. The second week, there were still areas with smoke, but the whole area got cleared on the bottom. And it was really impressive what it did.
Yeah.
And even more impressive than that has been the coming back of the greenery. In a lot of areas now, you don't even know there was a prescribed burn.
Absolutely.
And it
Yeah.
was something else
Right.
for a first-time experience.
Totally. Well, and we have to really be sensitive to the fact that a lot of us have had to flee due to wildfire, right? So there's been some trauma in our histories, and so even if there is a prescribed burn happening nearby, it's understandable that you'd wonder, whoa, what's going on here? This is, in May when the wildfire could occur. So, yeah, that's understandable. But then also, yeah, it's really cool that you observe the regrowth.
Yeah,
The
and
vegetation
afterwards
coming
I
back.
felt that's protected at the back of the place now. The past years up to now have been the fire breaks. If you notice all the burned wood, they came to the pasture and stopped. We live in the back of the ranch house up front, and it separated us from the garden on the other side was the soccer field. The soccer field was designated by the fire department for a second egress, so it had to be mowed and watered. And when you walk on it, it'd be slush, 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 because it was very wet. The fire took the whole garden, took the house there, took your place across the road. It was absolutely devastating, but stopped at the soccer field. So it shows what fire breaks do
Right.
and what they can save.
Absolutely. Well, and on a landscape scale perspective, what we're hoping to do here by having multiple parcels involved is to not necessarily stop a fire, especially in a high severity event, but to really slow it down so that we can buy time for personnel to come in, frankly, when it gets to that point. James?
You worked on a neighbour's property and it really looks fantastic. And the first day after you did it, I saw a family of 10 here just literally 10. Just wondering what to go through this.
Oh, that's awesome.
Great. But my question was, did you say that you can only hand treat over a 40% gradient? Is that what you said?
Oh,
You
so
didn't say that?
masticator operators, generally, they feel comfortable going on their machines up to about a 40% slope. It depends, because some cabs, are lifted so that they don't have this, because it's intimidating when you're going up a 40% slope like that. So it's really up to the operators, but yeah, that's generally a limit that's in place. Yeah. Evan, do you think you could turn the AC down just a couple notches? Is that okay for everybody? Just turn the AC down a little. Okay. Yeah. Anyone? Yeah.
I'm Jamie, I live on Weeping Willow, right here. You can say I'm going to cover this, but I'm curious about, many of us are here and everybody would love for this, I would imagine, to happen. What is the selection process? How is it gauged in regards to when and how?
For you mean who participates, or
Like, we're here, is that going to happen? Or is there you have to come walk the land?
So we absolutely will need to visit you and your property.
Okay.
In some rare instances, we didn't assist landowners because we determined that they're already doing an excellent job.
Okay.
But in most cases, we're able to help people.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So that brings us to a meatier topic, which is the landowner access agreement. So has anyone had a chance to look at that document? I sent it via email back in the summer. Okay, so I'm trying to front load it this time. So the Wildlife Conservation Board, they are our grantor. They're funding this project, the state. And they want to know that our money is being put to good use. And so they want an agreement being put between Sierra Streams Institute and you that gets filed with Nevada County that indicates that the landowner will maintain the work that we do up to a 15-year period. Okay? And so it does restrict you from developing in the areas that we treat. They want to know that, okay, we're not clearing just so that you can put in a volleyball court or something. So just so you know though, like, we are on the hook. So the Wildlife Conservation Board, they can come out and they could monitor your property, although they don't do that often from what I've heard, and they've never had to do this. But if they find that the work has not been maintained to at least some degree, right? Sierra Streams Institute, we could be financially responsible, and we might have to pay back the Wildlife Conservation Board for the treated area. So I think that's important to understand. Like, you're not on the hook, it's us in this partnership. Yeah.
By maintain, you mean like keeping limbs off of 10 feet? So obviously you're expecting growth.
Right.
What do you mean by maintaining that?
Yeah, so Cameron's wondering what maintenance looks like. So yeah, it's just that it's abating the vegetation that's coming back up. So it could be, you know, clipping scotch broom when you see it pop up, or cutting some brush or some trees. It just needs to appear that you've at least been kind of working away at that. Like, that's the goal of this project, is really to go in and establish a footprint to make it easier on the landowners to continue to maintain, because that's what we have to do anyway. So they acknowledge in the agreement that regrowth will happen. They know that. They're not expecting it, you know, to look just like the picture from day one, but it's got to look like you've made some effort. And we at Sierra Streams, we're committed to working with you. So we're not going to just clear your property and up and leave. Although admittedly, you know, there is some turnover. Like, that's a possibility. I might not be here forever, right? And so just being frank. But there are resources such as in the toolkit, there's grant opportunities. The FireWise community can band together to even get micro grants. You can take advantage of, you know, roving chipping programs, that kind of thing, to continue to maintain your property and working with your neighbors.
Erin,
Yeah.
it's a little hard for us back here to hear you.
Oh,
so can you just be aware of that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Speak to
Sorry, I had a coughing fit
that are
yesterday.
harder to hear, have more difficult hearing.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so you'll see some images of this agreement in a moment, but just so you know, we will prepare these documents, and everyone associated with your deed will need to sign, because this agreement is associated with your property. So it changes hands if you sell your property. You'll have to inform the new landowners of this agreement. Another thought is that, so attached to this agreement, we will put a map in there of the areas where we will be treating on your property. And if you think, oh, okay, well actually, we might want to develop over here, the contractor's already going to be out there. So you could pay them a little bit more to continue the clearing work, and then it won't be documented on this access agreement. Does that make sense? Yeah, and it'll cost less because they've already mobilized to the site. And this will have to be notarized formally to be filed with the county. And so this is what we did with the first cohort. We hosted a meeting, a notary meeting, where we bring someone over and you just bring an ID with the people that need to sign. And Jeff Lauder, our director, will be present, and everyone will sign, and then it's done. And then the work can actually commence. And if there are people on your deed that are out of town, etc., it is pretty easy for them. There's a lot of notaries out there, so it's about $15. It doesn't change wherever you are in the country, to go to a notary or have them come to you to sign. And then we need a hard copy back here. Yeah.
If we had that neighbor who's not here tonight, how can we get them involved or encourage them to? I mean, I'm thinking of a specific neighbor that's next to us. And,
Yeah. Sure. Well, I have a card in the back. You can give them my card. Or after this meeting, just if you have their contact info, I'll take it and I can reach out.
Okay.
Yeah, either way. going to take you through this access agreement. Just hang in there, please. Okay, and I can send you all a copy of this electronically, if that works, so you can read this at your leisure. But this is generally what it looks like. It's 3 pages long. So, here's your name, parcel number. These facts just state that essentially we're Sierra Streams Institute and we're going into a contract with you, the landowner. We receive funding through the Wildlife Conservation Board for this restoration project. These are the parcels and properties involved. Okay, so the duration part is key, obviously. This agreement runs 15 years from the date of signature. Other important parts of this. So this agreement shall be recorded in the official records of Nevada County. In addition, the landowner shall notify prospective buyees, lessees, or operators of the property to make them aware of this project if you change hands, right? So the covenant running with the land. So essentially it's tied to the property irrespective of ownership. That's what I already said. Let's see. So, there's a section here about restoration and maintenance. Maintenance looking like, removal of trees, brush, prescribed burning, collection of seed or cuttings, planting. You don't have to do all of that. The bare minimum would just be, continuing to abate the vegetation that's coming up. Let's see. So the land, this is important too. Sorry if it's blurry, everybody. You probably cannot read this. But the landowner reserves the right to use the property in any manner, provided that its use does not unreasonably interfere with the restoration and enhancement work completed. So there's some gray areas here where if you wanted to have some grazing on your land, like I don't think that would be an issue with the Wildlife Conservation Board. But again, if you wanted to pave over the area that we treat, that's a whole other story, and we should know about that if you have intentions to do that, especially if you look at the treatment map and it's within that treated area. And let's see, so this part basically says that Sierra Streams and contractors are insured for damages done. And so this remedy section, I'm not a lawyer, right? But my interpretation is that so WCB can put in an injunction. So if they learn that you want to put in a tennis court in the treated area, they can ask you to actually stop doing that work, or even if you already have, they can ask you to remove the tennis court instead of asking Sierra Streams to pay them. So they may or may not ask for that injunction depending on who's employed there at the time. Finally, there's section for signatures. And so we encourage you, if you have more specific questions about this agreement, and again, I will send this to you via email to look over, but we recommend you consult a lawyer with specific questions. Okay, and so maintenance, what maintenance could look like, and this is kind of getting ahead a little bit, but just so you could already start to envision yourself in this role. So it could look like removing regrowth, simply, right? Well, simply, it depends on how big your property is and how much we treat, right? But there's chipping green waste programs. Prescribed burning can be an awesome tool. So we're going in and we're doing this initial entry and ideally preparing your property for a prescribed burn. The fuel should be pretty low at that point. And I mean, if the property's been masticated, then yeah, you might want to wait a little bit longer. There's a little bit of a waiting period. It depends on the treatment type selected, but prescribed burning is absolutely an option down the road. And connecting with neighbors, the Nevada County RCD, to learn about prescribed burning if you don't feel comfortable doing that. And there's also just pile burning in the winter. You can also plant and seed. That's a good option to outcompete non-natives potentially, and to promote more biodiversity. So Maggie stepped out. Okay, but do y'all know Maggie Phillips-Born?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, yeah, she's the FireWise liaison, and she's been the one who's sending you the newsletter for the FireWise community, so she's a really, really great resource. Reach out to her, she's very responsive, but she's great at connecting people together. Because this is a community-wide effort, the hope is that, and people are becoming a little bit less connected, I think. Folks don't really know their neighbors maybe like they used to, and this is a really good opportunity to get to know your neighbors so that you can maybe share resources, right? And work together to get stuff done. And also, there is a Facebook page. I just learned about that for the FireWise community. So that could be a way to connect folks in your community as well. And then also we have that community toolkit that I mentioned in binder format and on our website. That could be a resource. And we absolutely take feedback. So if there's something in that toolkit, you say, Erin, I'd like to know more about this, let me know, and we can work on that. We have funding to improve that toolkit for you. Okay, we're getting through it. So there's just some stipulations for WCB, just deliverables really. So we need to monitor at least 25 sites before and after treatment. So it'd be wonderful if we could ask you to take some photos in the same spot over time. You don't have to, but that would be really useful information for us, just to monitor the treatments. And we also have a cool education component that I didn't talk about with this project, but we are working with students to collect data. So, and also with Saxon in the back there and his crew, we're working with them to collect data at a Scotch broom field to learn about the efficacy of different treatment types. So this is a cool, a pretty multifaceted project, and we want to be able to take the interpretations from the data collection and share it with you, so that we can learn together and do work the best work possible. And then ultimately, yes, the landowners must continue to maintain treatments. That is key. And so also a heads up about the BLM work that we're doing. You might not be able to see it that well, but for context, this is Newtown, and then this is Owl Creek Road, and then it turns into Holland Drive, right? So we're going to be hand clearing 80 acres of BLM land within the FireWise community with the California Conservation Corps crew. So they've all got, they're young folks that have gotten trained up. And another thing that we need is workforce development. We need more people in this field to do this kind of work. Yeah, Chuck?
Erin, when you say you're going to be working on these parcels, you're talking about 200 feet on the perimeter all the way around?
That's correct. Yeah. So we had to go through NEPA and with the BLM, and the stipulation is that we can only clear 200 feet of property boundary and infrastructure, so like roads, for example, or power lines on the BLM land. So that's why you see most of the perimeters that look like they're being treated, that will be treated here. So I actually have, at the table back there, there's a list of landowners who are next to this proposed work. So you will be contacted by the Bureau of Land Management. They're going to send you something in the mail, and it's a right of entry form. I encourage you to fill it out, but read through it, obviously, do what you need to do, because it does enable us to do this work. And we'll be contacting you as well, because we need to establish boundary lines. We want to make sure that the work doesn't spill onto your property, so we'll meet with you to make sure that we have an understanding for where the property lines are. And so we'll be hiring a technician in the next few weeks, so it'll likely be myself and that tech coming out there to meet with you, talk about property boundaries and objectives. Okay, almost there. So this is the flow chart that you may have seen. So we're getting into the next step section here. So here we are, we're at this kickoff meeting. We talked about the project background and timeline. I showed you photos, discussing, treatment types, the LAAs, that kind of thing. So we'll be moving on to the paperwork phase, but really the property visits that we'll be scheduling with you are kind of merged with the paperwork, because I'm asking you to read over this access agreement, consult a lawyer if you need to, if you want to participate, of course, and then know who else is on your deed and let them know that they need to be prepared to sign. And also prepare to attend a notary meeting or get scheduled with a notary. And then we're going to be assembling these agreements for you. Excuse me, do you have a comment in the back? Okay, sorry, I can't hear myself talk when I'm hearing those. Thank you. Almost done. So let's see. So we will meet with you on your property to talk about the treatments. We'll be hanging flagging and then identifying property boundaries. So we also ask that you get ahead of it and consider where your boundaries are. And maybe you don't know where your corners are. Maybe you know where one corner is. That's a start. We'll consult Nevada County for a record of surveys, and then we might be able to know distance from a known corner if we can interpret their scrawl back from the 70s or 80s. As long as we have an understanding, and if we have an understanding between you and your neighbor, even better. And then finally, the contractor will do an initial visit with you. They'll walk your property, and I don't know if I want to show of hands necessarily, but we'll have to do a bid with the contractor, so they'll need to come out to see. The contractors will need to go out to see some of the properties before they bid on the work. They want to know what they're getting into, right? So it'd be wonderful if some of you would be willing to let them just go and check out your property. And then finally, once the landowner access agreement has been notarized, then we're free to start the contract work. So timeline-wise, we're looking at, potentially the winter to actually get the work going, and that's really dependent on weather conditions, but I'm thinking through March. And it also depends on the contractor that we choose, right? The last one we went with, All Phase, they cruised over 2 months, then they were done. But I think it'd be nice to go with a contractor who maybe goes a little bit slower, so then we can get ahead of it and meet with you again on your property if we need to, let you know, hey, they're coming in a week or two. I think just taking it slower, then we can make adjustments as needed. So that's a lesson learned on our end too. So the first cohort was, they were the guinea pigs. And so not to say that everything's gonna go perfectly this time around, right? As long as we maintain consistent communication, that helps a lot. I think it's gonna go more smoothly this time. Finally, so I've already mentioned a lot of these next steps, right? So the site visits, LAA, contractor visits. I asked about, I didn't ask, but I just mentioned that they may want to come out to do a bid walk. So the color are you seeing? This looks different. So there's this lavender color. It looks lavender to me. Is that? Okay, cool, because it was different in the PowerPoint that I made. So that's the first cohort of landowners that we've treated already. About 23 properties. And then so in this magenta color, so this is cohort 2. And so you are part of cohort 2. And originally we had them separated into 3 cohorts, so this is cohort 3, but because of how quickly the contractor was able to work, we realized, wow, I think we can probably get all this done within 1 season. Or maybe 2 seasons through spring. So, so we have about 45 landowners in this cohort so far, and we can take more. So feel free to spread word to your neighbors. They can reach out to me.
So the properties that are colored in are the ones who have responded to you, and the ones that are empty are property owners that have not responded. Is that
Generally, yes. Yep, or folks have moved.
okay?
Yeah. I know it's hard to tell where you live, perhaps just on a parcel map with poor roads, but it gives you a general sense for who's participating.
Erin, is that map online for us to look at?
Is it online for you? It's not, but if that would be helpful, I can send out a map that's maybe a little more detailed than this, so you know where you are and who your neighbors are who aren't participating.
That would be great.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
Especially if you could send it to Maggie, I'm sure she could distribute it.
Yeah,
Should have a tab on the.
that's a great idea.
If one recognizes one's home up there in magenta,
Yep.
do we have to do anything?
So yes, if you recognize your property up there in magenta, do you have to do anything?
That's one.
So the answer is no, because you're on an email list and you're here. So that's huge. We have your name down. We'll be reaching out to you. So we ask that if you're interested in participating, you respond to us. I think I've cold called some of you and left voicemails, but it's nice if we get an email response so that we know that you are in. And I try to be pretty responsive via email. Let's see. Anything else come to mind? Any gather?
So, well, I can't remember this, but when you first started, did you identify all the property owners in the whole area and try to find a way to contact each of them? Because you have the planning department or the people that have the names of all the rooms. You did once do that a long
Right.
time ago.
Yeah. So Laura's wondering about our process for outreach.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have a master contact list from Maggie. So we emailed all those folks, even called some of them. And I did put out mailers at the mailboxes. We learned we can't put things in the mailboxes because we got them all back from the post office. That was a bummer. But yeah, we put flyers out and we could do that again. That is an option.
Is there anybody that's refusing to participate?
That's refusing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in Cohort 1, we've had a couple of folks that said, frankly, they didn't want an access agreement associated with their deed. So, I mean, it's understandable. It's a personal choice. And some folks, they want the freedom to develop as they see fit. And some folks don't want government involvement. That's understandable. Yeah.
Curious if there's somewhere that you could point out that's had the treatment and the restoration that we can look at and say, well, this is what a healthy situation looks like. Because you talk about diversity of plants and the limbing, the spacing of trees. Like, I don't even know what a healthy zone would look like with all that. I mean, is there something that comes to mind that's on the roadside or
Oh,
good point?
Yeah.
You're driving by this place, what's for that?
sure. So I don't know if we have done treatments in Cohort 1 at those sites. So I don't know if you've seen people out there working and have seen some of these properties.
Well, I was thinking more like something 5 years down the road. Maybe not even around here, but like, this is a nice, healthy ecosystem. It's also fire resistant. This happened 5 years ago. I'm just throwing that out there.
Right.
Something came to mind from that.
Oh, gotcha. So like photo examples of what we could aim for down the line.
Yeah. Or if you're like, next time you drive down to Auburn, and you're passing by whatever, look over there, and that's what properties should look like.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice.
Yeah, I like that idea. That's something that we could add to our toolkit online. We could add some photos. Yeah.
I'd be very interested to see.
Yeah, absolutely, especially a few years down the line. I mean, I've been here for 3. And I mean, I know, Saxon, do you have some examples?
The easiest example is when I teach my driving crew is when we go out and do our first treatment. Imagine what it's going to look like in 15 years. Everything that we left there, we want to grow. So that's why we have a big spacing. We receive usually efforts pretty much there. We are making a list and that we could make available to other communities about native plants that actually kind of get Scotch grown and blackberries. So we're generating this right now from another tribe that's actually been doing it a few more steps ahead of us than here, but we're going to catch up. But yeah, as far as like a prescription area, even where we're working right now at the Bath City School of Arts. It's a really good example to see what kind of look like, what bad kind of. There was another crew ahead of us that came in, and it's just a clean mountain, which is what we don't want. So it's a good example to see what looks like bad that's been unattended for the last 40 plus years. What it looks like bad when someone just comes here and clears everything, it looks pretty, because you think, oh, there's no fire danger, there's no floor, there's nothing for the animals. And then you have our little section that we're growing, because we're still working on it. And it gives you a sense of this feels good, this feels healthy. But yeah,
How do you tell? That's an answer, right?
yeah, we are.
How do you tell when, like, what section is your section?
It's going to be obvious. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is private school and everything, but there's going to be a wall that's for inviting neighbors. We're going to be doing the scratch burn, and there is a walk actually with one of our native couple friends, which is to do an hike walk and do where people are treated. So it might be really a good way to get out there and actually see it on the ground. So we'll be out there doing talks too about big fire and scratch fire. But as far as seeing healthy forest, I only know about 5 properties, and they're old rancher families that my dad's side real quick. I'm 6th generation on my non-native side, and then Haitian on the other side for 10,000 plus years. But there's not too many big properties. Or you just, oh my God, this is what it looked like.
Oh, okay.
They're very few and far between.
Well, I don't want to well, it's for a good reason, but there's Susan Hopkins on your drive out here. She's got, her property looks really good. There's a bunch of like mature manzanita that have been pruned. You don't necessarily have to do that, go to that extent, but they've even they've planted seedlings since the Jones fire hit. It is a really nice looking property. As you drive out, you see the big manzanita on your left. That looks good. And I know she's maintained it for years. Yeah, Chuck?
Chuck Simic at Alfred Grove. One of the concerns, not for me necessarily, people I've talked to, that they were concerned about deed restrictions. Now, the way you've explained it, this is a 15-year contract.
Yep.
And that doesn't imply a formal deed restriction, because those usually go on perpetuity. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Oh, on how this
What
is.
happens at the end of 15 years, for example?
Yeah. Sure. So Chuck was acknowledging that this is a 15-year restriction, whereas other access agreements have restrictions that might be into perpetuity, right, or even longer term. So actually, this agreement was for 25 years originally, but we were able to talk it down to 15. And so, so after the 15-year period, people can go online and see that there's this access agreement. They can see, it goes until this date. So they'll also notice that it's since past that date and that it no longer applies. Yeah.
Sorry, question. So if you had a house structure, a tennis court, that got burned up in the fire, and now that area footprint is in the restriction zone, do you not rebuild those structures or houses?
That's interesting. So you're suggesting a fire occurred or some disturbance occurred, and that's no longer there, and you're treating in that area.
That's a restriction area now. Can we not rebuild those cabins?
Right. That's something I would talk to legal counsel about. Yeah, I can't speak to that.
Second question. What happens if landowner is unable to keep up on their side of things? Is there a penalty against them, or?
No.
Okay.
No, the landowner does not. The landowner does not get penalized if they do not maintain the work. No, that is Sierra Streams would get penalized for it. Yeah. Yeah, Jamie?
So, do we need to contact our neighbors, like our neighbor behind us? I don't know if they're involved, I don't know them at all, I don't know where the property line is. Is that something I should preemptively try to contact them before you guys come in, or do you guys do that?
That's a really great question. So we did a little bit of both, and with Cohort 1, we asked that landowners to reach out to their neighbors to at least say, hey, this is happening. We're doing some clearing work. But also, we don't really know where the clearing work's going to happen until we meet with you. So once you know where that's happening, then you know which neighbors should be more aware than other neighbors. But yeah, regardless, like the neighbors should know that it's happening. And hopefully you're on like decent terms with them, right? That helps a lot. And that you can both just have a nice understanding. And maybe the neighbor would be grateful if we did spill onto their property. But at the end of the day, we're going to ask that neighbors get in writing that they will not retaliate against us if we do spill onto their property. Yeah.
Is there a time limit for application if you're not included? If a neighbor is interested and would like to apply, is there any time limit?
No. I'm going to say no for now, but I mean, yeah, once the ball is rolling,
You didn't mention limited funds, so it could be like when the money runs out, right?
yeah, I mean, so we have funding through March of 2027. But I think it would be great to have, it's easier on us, honestly, to have all the ducks in the row at the same time, right? So we can get all those agreements done. But we are open to getting the paperwork done at a later date for certain individuals if they get on later. So yeah, it doesn't hurt to reach out.
What is the March 27th date?
The what?
You said?
Oh, that's the end of the grant. Yeah, that's when we no longer will have funding. Yeah. Or, beforehand, maybe all the funds will be spent. Yeah. Yeah.
A couple questions. One is, have you noticed whether doing this work might trigger a reassessment by the county person or not?
No.
Okay.
No. So I will say that the county, they are our fiscal sponsor for this project. So our little nonprofit cannot front thousands and thousands of dollars to pay a contractor. So the county is stepping in as a middleman, and they're able to front us lots of money so we can pay the contractor in a timely way. So because they're a partner, they have asked already to go out and look at some of the work that's been done with Cohort 1, but they don't care about doing inspections. They're not going to know anything. They don't care about that. They just want to see the treatments that's been done. So that's it. Yeah.
Another question I have, there's a couple of properties on the lower left, are two properties, big forest on the hill. Back in the late 50s, 60s, early 60s, we used to just light the whole thing on fire. And there's large trees there, and it was very healthy forest. The pine needles would burn everything, and all we were left with was the trees. Occasionally, we would lose one tree in the burn.
Yeah.
I would like to get back to that situation. We were forced to still own the property, but we were forced to stop doing that. And now it's overgrown with brush. The same trees are there, just bigger. If we could get back to that situation, then we would be burning any shrubs would just burn along with it. We wouldn't be preserving them. But we would have to preserve some of the low-lying shrubs, ferns and stuff, instead of burning with the fire.
Oh, do you mean with the terms of the grant, like needing to maintain the integrity of the work that's been done? Because we're leaving shrubs. Yeah, that's a good question. I think I can safely say that because you are prescribed burning, it's showing that you care and that you are maintaining your property. So I think that's absolutely fine. We're advocates of prescribed burning for sure. So the Conservation Board would not come after us for that.
I think I can say that even that burning wouldn't control the Scotch broom. It would still come back. Right.
Yep, it takes multiple treatments to get rid of Scotch broom. Absolutely. But at least we'd be able to go in and make a dent. Yeah.
So I'm super appreciative that this is happening here. It's an amazing just opportunity for all of us. And is this happening all over the place, or is it, I think you may have mentioned this earlier, but I'm just curious. Did we get selected because of the Jones fire?
Or that your office burned down?
Right. I think it had something to do with us originally, where our office was here, we were in proximity to, we were within the Jones FireWise community, right? Yeah, we were at Woolman within the community, and we thought, why not make this a community effort and just expand it outward right from where we are?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's great.
Did the school have to apply to be in the project, or was that like the ground zero thing that was an assumption? You know, all the learning that you did here, it was like the sample or the example.
Oh yeah, so the school, the board did sign a landowner access agreement. Yep, and so when it changes hands, that agreement is transferred to the new owners.
So they're considered one of the properties that participated in the project.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. Right. Anything else? So the next steps, just to remind you, we will be reaching out to you to schedule site visits. You can call me, email me if you have questions about the landowner access agreement. I'll respond the best I can to that. And when we meet with you on site, we will ask that you sign a right of entry form indicating that we can be there, that we can hang flagging and discuss treatments with you. And then we'll also have a document after our visit that will detail what we talked about and then what our objectives are, so it's on paper, and then folks can sign off on that as well. Cool. Awesome. And then also, I don't know if you've seen in the back, we have a stewardship calendar. Some of you have taken them. Feel free to take one as you leave. That's one sample of what's in our toolkit. They make great refrigerator art. Yeah.
Just a quick question to clarify. How soon can we hear from you? When is the deed going to be presented? Signature weeks, a month, 2? Or?
Oof, yeah, probably weeks at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to hire a new technician. We need to get a paralegal to access your deeds.
Right.
That takes time. And so yeah, I think it'll be maybe 3 weeks or so,
Okay.
2 to 3.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, of course. Yes?
You had mentioned a list of plans for diversification and pushing back classroom, that kind of thing. Is that list going to be on your toolkit? Do you something we can access?
I think it's something we feel the tribe would feel more comfortable with giving to you. I mean, it's like native plants to our area, so I kind of want to spread the word to everyone I can.
Absolutely.
But we're still in the phase of Scotch Green was the first plant on Earth. I've done it in 4 different ways, and each one I've been into it, so we're really hoping the plant side is going to be the best one. But yeah, I think chirp and the tribe would have no problem sharing with syrup and stuff. And every FireWise community we can, really.
And we do have a list of plants that we've already shared with contractors, as well as pictures of those plants that we recommend keeping on your landscape for diversification. So we can add that to the toolkit also. Yeah.
Yeah, you might have answered this question already, but we have some property just to the right of the drawing.
Okay.
Can that be expanded a little bit?
Oh, so are you outside of the Jones Bar FireWise community? Are you in the Jones Bar FireWise community?
Well, we're in this community here with a few of these purple properties.
Oh, okay.
We have another property to the right of the purple properties.
Okay, like out here?
Up a little
Yeah.
bit farther to the right,
Mm-hmm.
along Newtown Road there. Did that be expanded to there?
That's an interesting question. I don't want to be exclusive and say, oh no, because you're not in the Jones Bar FireWise community, we can't treat your property. I will take your address and take a look.
That one's on Prince Rainier Drive, 26 acres.
Nice.
The Jones, luckily the Jones Bar Fire didn't make it to it, but it's there's a good chance in the same fire zone.
Okay. Yeah, please reach out to me.
We're
Email,
on
get
this.
it ready.
I'm Michael.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Oh, gosh. Okay. Great. Yeah, it's a lot of properties to Martini.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for coming.